Yo, what is going on? Welcome to On the Chain. What a great night it is here with co-host Jeff. You guys have no idea who I am, do you? This
We
is
don't
Jeff,
know.
by the
Nobody
way.
knows.
Nobody knows, Chip. Nobody knows. Today, Ripple XRP test, the SEC outplayed by the Ripple attorneys. Once again, no settlement on the horizon, but we are getting this close, inching little by little to the new Ripple test. We're going to talk about that, Chip, and a lot more. Had to put that one in there. Whenever you're ready, if you're ready to kick this thing off,
I don't see why not. Let's get it going, Jeff. Let's do this. Woo.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Bammo.
Right.
It's
man,
on the chain. So much to unpack today. Let's get it started, Jeff.
let's do it, man. This show is brought to you by permission.io, permission.io, the one company that's helping you take control of your data and allowing you to monetize the time you spend online, checking out all those ads that pop up. You know how every so often you're browsing around, there's every website loaded with ads. Those big companies like Google and others, they're monetizing and making billions off of you. Well, permission.io created this little browser extension. You can download that. Every so often they'll say, hey, you want to check out this ad? And you say yes, and you watch this short video, and you get to earn Ask token, ASK token. It's really cool, and it's only with permission.io. So I highly advise, go check it out, see what it's all about. That's it, Chip. What,
So,
man, the SEC. We've talked about this now for like 6 months. People are like,
seems
why
like
do you keep
forever.
talking about the SEC? It's just like, man, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. Man, that call today, I tuned in for a little bit, then it got cut off, then the phone started ringing. But the little that I heard in that beginning part, man, it was just like, hey, it's over. Yeah. What's going on with all this stuff?
I got to tell you, the Tenero, the attorney representing the SEC, it almost felt like there were two different hearings going on. Like he was talking about a completely different subject than the Ripple attorney. I was like, it was so disjointed. And his argument, it always felt like he was behind the eight ball. When he's trying to make a point, he just wasn't making a point, and he was floundering, which is what you always see the SEC doing. Now, he was masterful about the way he produced it, the way he voiced it, but it was completely off base. And I think the most frustrating thing has got to be when you're in one of these hearings, you've completely got to let that other person talk until it's your time and the judge addresses you. And we saw a little bit of that towards the end of the. I want to get people's takes today. I want you guys to throw that right in the browser. Also, throw in there where you're from, what country, what city, and drop it in the comments below if you're watching on the rewatch, because we always love to see where people are coming in from. It's always cool for Jeff and I to review it later. So, Jeff, I mean, we'll jump into it, but I think there was one tweet that you wanted to discuss because I think you had some thoughts about it, and I wouldn't mind weighing in myself.
All right, let's bring this in. Here we go. Boom. All right. So the first thing we look at here is this graphic. Settle, settle, settle. Right. So Mr. B, big supporter of the show too, Mr. B XRP. We got to dissect some of the things he's saying here because you know what? I don't 100% agree with the thought process here. I'd love to get your take on it. I wish Mr. B was here, to give some feedback, but I saw this come up as posted yesterday. I believe the SEC can't afford to lose the case with Ripple. You probably can't see it, so let me zoom in. Because any future digital asset company that are accused of the same will use the same defense. Ripple has already included all the video evidence. I'll double down on this thing. We'll settle. They picked the wrong fight. Now, Chip, I'd love to get your take on this. Love to get other people's take on this as well. But I do not believe, A, that the SEC is willing to settle, and B, that Ripple wants to settle. I look at this and I don't agree that the SEC can't afford to lose because the SEC has lost plenty of big cases, and they go off on these companies and then they make this whole, emotional tirade that they're going to win. They lose. The other, the company they're suing wins, and then it just gets pushed off to some like back page in the SEC. that's it. And then you never hear of it again. But I don't believe, that they can't afford to lose. I'm going to go back on this one premise. Love to hear your take on this. They're there to represent the interests of the investors. And if you go in with these statements that they can't afford to lose this case because of XYZ, it goes way beyond the confines of what they're there for. And it just shines a huge spotlight on the fact that they're not there to support the investors. And I think it's too much. But from Ripple's side, I don't think they want to settle. It's all about clarity. Your take.
Yeah, I don't see why they want to settle. I mean, basically, this fair notice is alive and well. The fair notice is so alive and well that the SEC is terrified of it, and it has to do with their own missteps, right? Writing somebody from the community 6 weeks prior to the drop, and then you had Roisman and Pierce come out in a public statement and give that. But I think there's something bigger here. First of all, you don't get anything out of a settlement. Yay, we settle. And what do you get? Well, Garlinghouse already said we tried to settle. We did. We tried. But a settlement has to bring something positive. If you're being, now I've been through litigation. I've been through emergency injunctions where they wake the judge up at 2 a.m. and they have an emergency injunction to shut down a business, which happened to be mine at the time. And they pulled the judge into court and he says, you pulled me, there's an emergency. What is the emergency? And thank God I had really good counsel that could basically outwit the opponent. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is that they looked really dumb. The judge lashed the hell out of them and said, you don't have any standing here. Who do you think you are? Blah, 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 blah. And basically sent them home with their tail between their legs. Now, the reason I'm sharing an anecdote like that is because if there's litigation involved and you're a defendant, you have to have something that's going to benefit you. And if you come out of this with zero clarity, again, that today's XRP is not a security, I don't get the point, Jeff. I was like, who cares? If okay, you can go back and maybe potentially argue. You still got to go prove it, how it matches up against the 3 prongs of the Howey test. But in 2013, but what happens on today's hearing when they were saying, and I saw this is a really good comment here, Dr. Orlando XRP Hitman Wallace said the judge was pissed because Tenero did not lay anything out for her to keep up with, follow along with, and his deflection of the facts coming with the defendant's counsel. It's a pretty good assertion right there, of kind of what happened there. And
yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's really perfect. And I think that I just don't see why there would be, why there'd be a settlement. But I think I love where Ripple's position is right now. I think they're sitting in a really prime position.
I think so too. I think that's a perfect observation. And someone else said, why now? Why would they settle now when they're about to win? Or at least everything's stacked in their favor.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand. We're part of the XRP army, the XRP community, the crypto community at large. We care. This impacts not only XRP, not only Ripple, but this impacts all of crypto, right? This is a precedent-setting case. It's the biggest case of this century because it's one of the first new asset classes in the last 400 years. It's that big. And how do we know that? Because the phone lines are jammed with once 4,000 people show up and more people want to get on, right? So they can't exactly get on. But what I loved what the judge said today was, she said, well, suppose, and I'm paraphrasing, so if I don't get it 100% right, look, it's from memory, and it was a long conference earlier, but she said something to the effect of, imagine a bunch of the commissioners from the SEC all go out to lunch and get together, and they're having a conversation, and they feel like it's murky, or there's really not a lot of clarity around it. I think what she might have been hinting at was some of the most recent statements. Now, I could be wrong on this whole thing. She could have just been laying out a possible, a what if, like, what if this happened? Would it have any bearing? But I think the way she laid it out was kind of funny and somewhat humorous. There we go. I want to hit this thing. Thank you, James XRP Rule, for the 589. By the way, that's coming to us in XRP. Proof, once again, that XRP is not a security. I bet the SEC can't leave you guys a tip of the security. Hell no, they can't, James. No, they cannot, and where's Gary Gensler throughout this whole thing? And we had that ripping article on Gensler and basically blowing his legacy by Rosalind Layton, who is a superstar and totally nails it every single time. But Jeff, that's just my take. I think, Rob XRP always does a really good job of live tweeting it. He picks out the important bits. I thought we just kind of hit some of them and go through it a little bit, kind of get people's.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I was trying to go back and look for that statement from from Mark Cuban. Here it is, that has to do with, and you just asked, where is Gary Gensler in all this? And, where Gary Gensler is. And this is where I'm really surprised, this doesn't come up in the case, because at some point they're going to look, this wasn't it, but these are just some, commentary back from Cuban, oh, here it is. So Gary Gensler, is talking. He said, if someone asks a lawyer, accountant, or advisor if something is over the line, maybe it's time to step back from the line, going right up to the edge of the rule, or searching for some ambiguity in the text or a footnote may not be consistent with the law and its purpose. And Chip, to me, that was like a direct relation back to the Ripple, case. When we were reading through footnotes, and he's almost, identifying that they're coming up to the line, and, you're searching for the ambiguity in the text, and others are as well. And to me, it's like, where is Gary Gensler? Why is Gary Gensler voicing these types of thought processes in public and why isn't it then being referenced back to this case? Because it's almost like he's fighting the case out in the public sphere and Twitter, knowing that the crypto community is there. And then I love how, you get Mark Cuban's response back. And we already covered this, but where is Gary Gensler? When you talk about stepping over the line, take a look at the SEC first. Here are some classics. And then you get into the classics, these missteps or whatever by the SEC. That's where Gary Gensler is. It's just, man, it's just too much. It's too much.
Well, you know what? I think what happened to Gary Gensler here is he got a little bit taken by his own celebrity. It's like he goes out on Twitter and all of a sudden he has 50,000 followers and all of a sudden he's putting these office. So we haven't seen one of his office videos, office hours videos. This is Gary Gensler. And this is because the first two went over so well, Jeff. They had to get rid of those because those weren't really working. It's like, Mr. Gensler, please keep your mouth shut. You're not doing us any favors here.
Stop doing these. These are awkward.
Yeah, you're crushing the SEC, man. We cannot have you crushing the SEC. I want to throw this up here. This is Monterey. Says, look forward to catching up on things in the evening. Thanks for what you guys do, Monterey. Thank you for supporting. We really do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. And, the thing with Gensler is that Rosalind Layton pointed out that he had a chance to become a hero. He could have had somewhat of a hell of a legacy in what he's done. And a lot of speculators, a lot of YouTubers in the space in our community, I think they kind of looked at Gensler having this background in cryptocurrency. Hey, maybe he comes in and tries to find a way to settle. The SEC is not really about settlement. The SEC is about enforcement. And if they feel like they've got a case here to enforce, because I think where Gensler's blown it is in the last couple interviews he's done where he says, oh, there's plenty of clarity. There's clarity everywhere. There's so much clarity. We don't even know what to do with all the clarity. And it can't be further from the truth. But when somebody has to, you guys have probably been in that position, right? You have to toe the company line. You have to sit there and say the positive things when deep down inside, you don't even believe it yourself. But you have to toe the company line. Yes, we never make mistakes. Oh, no. Worries, and you're defending your company, but you realize that you're not even believing it because it's a crock. And that's kind of where Gensler kind of comes off here. But you got to look at his position. What else? What choice does he have to say, well, it's kind of murky? Well, that's not going to help. So he has to take this position of it's so clear. I mean, it's definitive. I mean, it's so obvious. Clear. And then Mark Cuban
taught it in the MIT.
Then Mark Cuban rips him a new asshole, and rightfully so. And not that I'm the biggest Cuban fan, but I love something like that. Hey, this is a guy who's a big time investor. Who's made his money coming out of the 90s with broadcast.com. Nobody even remembers broadcast.com. And the whole idea of broadcast.com, this is where Cuban was brilliant. Cuban would go around and he would demonstrate broadcast.com. Now, back then, broadband wasn't really available, but every time he'd go demo it, it was somebody that had broadband. And it was like 5% of the country, which meant that most people couldn't watch broadcast.com. So when he sold it for $1 billion to Yahoo, it pretty much crumbled in less than a year. There was nothing there. But he's a really phenomenal marketer, and he's gone on to do other things too. Of course, he's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks as well, and James probably knows him well, being over there in Texas. But look, I like a guy.
A pretty good job for himself.
Yeah, and he's done really great on the Shark Tank. I've really come to really like his takes on stuff because the way he analyzes business. I might not agree with him on everything, but he's good at what he does. He's made a lot of money, and he sees exactly. Go ahead and take that, Joe.
That's funny, right? So cryptic. We have clarity that the clarity is so clear that it is clear that it is clarity. That's our buddy Gary. And then
Gary! Gary!
Sorry, I had to play
I
that.
was
It just seemed
looking
appropriate, Jeff.
for it. I was
Just
trying
seemed
to get to it.
It
That
just
was so
seemed
funny.
appropriate, Jeff. It
Yeah,
just seemed
that's hilarious.
like we had to throw that on there.
Miguel was saying Gary's in the pocket of the bankers. He met several times with Jay Clayton just before Clayton resigned. Well, from that perspective, I would hope they would meet with him, kind of handing over the reins. You somehow have to transfer some of that data as well, right? But man, oh man.
But you have to
check
look
it out. Big shout out to my dad over here, Papa Huddle, right here on the chain. Very simple. Currencies have been bought and sold for years. Example, the Krugerrand. So all our currencies securities. So are all currencies securities?
There you go.
That's exactly it. So there's obviously something else going on there. I like that statement. Great point.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I wanted to just jump into this tweet stream just to kind of give you an overview, because this is Rob XRP. It actually started a little bit late. And then there was a technical glitch where it went, I guess the hearing went on, but a lot of the participants outside of the people that were actually speaking, it dropped out. And I was like, I actually forgot about it because I had one of my earbuds in and I was doing other stuff. And all of a sudden it came back. I was like, oh, I forgot that was still going on. It was long enough where I didn't notice it. Then the judge arrived, then the lawyer presentations, and then the judge said that she reviewed all the documents in regards to the motion. She won't discuss the Slack issue today, so that was off the table. Then she said, in your opinion, Ripple, then SEC, in regards to aiding and abetting charge, is it objective or subjective? And there's a big sort of a circular argument about this whole subjective or objective. And I thought to myself, okay, and is it really all that important? Because I really wasn't sure where they were going for, but then it sort of made some sense later on. Ripple said after defending against the chart and citing previous cases, the answer is objective. The judge said, well, referring to a specific case the SEC cited, please discuss how that case did not affect my analysis. Ripple said, of course, the attorney for Ripple said that the SEC refers to a case that is simply not relevant for multiple reasons. The case referred to as a different situation completely. It was a criminal case, a fraud case, something this case is not. And what they cited there, and again, this is something that was raised in some previous filings, but they cited the kick and the kin token, and then they cited a fraud case, which I'm not 100% familiar with, but what they were arguing was this is a completely different juncture. This has nothing to do with the case, in the sense that this is different because this was not an ICO. And they talked about the other cases that were prosecuted and all the ones. Remember Gensler famously, Jeff? He said, oh, we prosecuted 75 cases, something like that, right?
The majority were ICOs.
Yeah, and they were all ICOs. So they were trying to make the distinction, saying that it really was different because it wasn't a fraud case. These other cases were fraud. They were ICOs. This case is not. By putting those charges, it opens the door to SEC being explored. These documents will be highly valuable to prove XRP is not a security.
It's amazing. I mean, you think about the way the SEC has gone about all of this, and we've discussed it, a lot, but it's just like, they're fumbling this entire thing. It's almost as though they're fighting a case they either don't believe in, or they're just, not that they're not prepared for it, but they're arguing a completely different case. I mean, there's no relevancy, right? So it's like Ripple came to the table to play chess because they're in a chess match, and the SEC showed up with a checkers board, and they're like, I'm here to play checkers. And he said, yeah, but there's a chess match. We're here to play chess. They're not even, and the judge is there to judge on chess, so it's just like, they're not even in the same area. It just amazes me,
Oh, exactly
XRP
right.
Speedboat here. Thanks for the support. Tenero, sorry, Your Honor. What did you say? I've got tinnitus.
That's pretty good. Ali G says, Sia was charged and took a rap. Yeah, exactly. So the thing, that's another one, right? That's another one. And this one's different. And then one of the things that I really had a difficult time with this hearing, Jeff, is the way Tenero was so swarmy, the way he said, oh, you think XRP is special? You know, he kept saying this stupid thing. You think it's unique? You think it's, and I was like, well, yeah, it is. Have you been paying attention? Do you know that it's a decentralized asset that has a ton of use cases? But the way he did that was just dirty, man. It was like really, and you guys probably, if you guys listen, you'll probably know that. But then there was this, I talked about the silence on the call. And Jeff, this is where you bailed, right? You just thought the call dumped.
Yep, that was right about that point. Well, I tried logging in a couple times and it was still down, and then my phone started blowing up, and that was the end of that.
And that was the end of that. Yeah, I know how that goes. And mine did at the end of the conference, so I missed the actual. That's when there was a lot of stuff going on at the end there. But then Ripple said, discussing with DPP applies. The SEC has not made the showing why DPP applies to all documents. Secrecy is not a point of DPP. We asked if we were going to get the document, the SEC, that all documents would be covered by DPP. The SEC has offered some documents recently, but they're heavily redacted or they're protected by lawyer-client privilege. We're not saying that the SEC is showing bad faith. Now, that was strategic. We're not necessarily saying they're showing bad faith, but it's bad faith. You know, you always say something like that. We're not saying it's bad faith, but it's horribly bad faith here. It's ridiculously bad faith. And I love that. And I can't think of the name of the attorney. Guys, if you drop the attorney's name in there, I love this guy. I can't think of his name right now. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I want to give him the right.
Hey, here's
billing.
a good while you're looking for that. Extreme Boy, they're not used to anyone fighting back, and they're definitely not used to someone fighting back with that vigor. You know, it's like they're outplaying them at every step. A lot of times, you know, the cases that the SEC loses doesn't have this kind of connection. And this is by far, I don't know how many times we can say it, this is by far the most critical case right now in crypto history, cryptocurrency, crypto history. And they're going to keep trying to relate back to Kick and Telegram and all those irrelevant cases to this. But the outcome of this case, kind of going back to what Mr. BXRP was saying in his tweet, it's this outcome that all future cases will then be judged on. And that's why I believe it will never settle. It's just not going to go to settlement. There's going to be there's going to be a final outcome by the judge that's going to provide the clarity that's needed. I don't see it any other way. It's just going to be a clear loss for them.
Oh, you're right, Jeff. And when this gets to trial, the people that have the firepower, it's not necessarily the SEC. They're stumbling around. They can't really cite anything except for it's cleared, it's clear, it's clear. And if they got called on it, they'd be like, well, what part of the Howey test? And why did the Howey test know in 1946 that there was going to be a digital asset class, the first one in 400 years, that this would apply to? So you can't really do that. And this is where all they have to do is chime in and say, here's a tweet from one of the guys over at FinCEN, right? And he said that, hey, this is just to let you know, back off SEC. Digital assets, digital currency, cryptocurrencies are not securities. That's why we regulate them, right? That's exactly what they'll say. That's why they called it a currency. And that's the firepower. Now, Kermit Zifrog from the UK says, thank you for that 4-pounder for 49, like that. He said, did you notice the wording of Brad's recent tweet? If I can take anything away from his experience, it sounds like things are done. I don't know. I don't remember seeing his last tweet, but I think maybe that's a vote of confidence. I don't know if you can see that, if you can pull that up, Jeff, maybe we take a look at that, but I don't know. We'll see what you're reading into that. I just, man, if I'm the Ripple and the attorneys, you go for the jugular, man. You take them down to the mat. You smash their face into the sand. That's what I would do. I know it seems aggressive, but you know what? They're in the right here. They were minding their own business for 8 years, really. And then all of a sudden they're supposed to know that, and this is one of the things that came up in the hearing too, is where you had the, who was it? I'm trying to think exactly. I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, gosh, that one got away from me. Anyway, but I had it there. It was close. It was but let's jump back into this thing here.
Oh, hang on. Just a quick side note, just because it popped up. I know it came up like an hour ago, but Philan here, Philan, James. Violent XRP community SEC Gov v Ripple and Kristen Larson file a letter requesting permission to file a combined letter motion regarding unidentified discovery dispute in which they have reached an impasse with the SEC. Brad Garlinghouse is not part of this filing. And this was just posted at 6:30.
Well, that's interesting.
So, yep. And here it is right here. So we have Dear Judge Nedburn, we write on behalf of the defendants, Ripple Labs and Christian Larson, together defendants, to seek the court's permission to submit a combined letter motion of 7 pages or fewer by both defendants regarding a discovery dispute on which we've reached an impasse with the SEC. We believe that a combined letter of 7 pages or fewer, which is below the 5-page per party limit provided by Section 2C of the court, etc., best serves the interests of judicial economy and efficiency, given the overlapping nature of many of the defendants' arguments. The SEC consents to defendants' request, and we consent to the SEC filing a response that falls within the same requested page limit. So, man, it's amazing, right? It's like, what's going on? There's something bigger going on here.
Well,
you think?
I don't know if it says necessarily bigger, but I think the SEC really did a poor job today with the judge explaining that they didn't have to turn over the papers. Like, wait a minute, the judge told you to turn it over, and they made the argument that, well, why would all of our conversations about every digital asset he said, for example, we deal with this government organization. So, by the way, Jeff, one I had never heard of before, and then we deal with this government organization, another one, because you're pretty familiar with most of them, but these are such niche ones. And so I'm like, really? Those are who you were talking to about? So that seemed pretty odd there too. And I'll put this up from XRP Supercar. Thank you for the 10 spot. He goes, Gary, the meme will be a historical one. It will be. Well, that's what we got to do is we got to replace it with we got to replace the meme with Gensler's face on it, with the Gensler, with the Gary view. That's going to be fun, right? Man, oh man, oh man, this is some fun stuff, right?
Here you go, Chip. Brad Garlinghouse 6 hours ago. Rosalind Layton, we kind of read through that article yesterday. The crypto uprising the SEC didn't see coming via Forbes. Garlinghouse responded earlier today. This has been clear from the start. The SEC's lawsuit isn't just about Ripple. It's about what impossible standards of fair notice and due process through regulation by enforcement can do to the crypto innovation. Anyone could be next without warning. That was one of two. And number two, at least one learning I'll take from this experience: never bet against the tenacity and thoroughness of Twitter sleuths. So
That's
that's
a nice
the statement. That's huge. That's
Well,
big.
that's
That's a big shout out.
But you want to know why? Because that is the XRP army uncovering. DAI put a lot of them out there, but just uncovering all the hypocrisy in videos and text and stuff. So that's what they originally, the researchers went to work and started uncovering this, and that's a nice shout out to the community without shouting out the community. So that's pretty solid right there. I want to jump back into this right here. He says, the SEC showing bad faith, but here it is, right for your honor, that DPP is badly applied. Judge said the SEC turns objective or subjective. And so, citing multiple previous court cases, it's not about objective or subjective, and this is the SEC talking anymore. Per our view, Ripple saying XRP is unique, but they refer to specific fraud cases. You want to know why, Jeff? Why do you think that is? Because there is no other case to refer to. There is no precedence that's set in here, right? What all of the other ones were ICOs, and they had to bring in fraud cases, right? And that's why they're doing that. So being swarmy and just dirty, Teniero's got to say it's unique. He had to say that, and to me, it was just, it was kind of like throwing it in their face a little bit. But why is this so unique, and why are they bringing in fraud cases, and why are they talking about ICOs? Well, this is groundbreaking precedent. There's never been where the SEC's gone after a non-ICO or a non-fraud case. So what would they cite? What case law could they possibly cite, Jeff?
They haven't cited any.
Because they can't, because there isn't anything. Because there isn't anything. So then the SEC said, now referring to cases about objective versus subjective. The SEC's hope is to have answered the judge's questions. Judge, hold on. Was Brad objectively reckless? And the SEC says, well, we need to ask questions of Brad. Brad knows what he believed, and he can say that to a court. And the judge is like, hold on. This is the part that I like, because this was getting good.
It's so
Judge
crazy,
says,
right?
You're confusing objective or subjective. Let me clarify that for you. Said in her own words. She went and clarified it. So if you think that was unclear, was it reasonable to understand how Brad acted? The SEC, right. Let me explain. And this is where sometimes the longer you talk, the worse it is for you, Jeff.
Oh my God. They need to
refers to previous cases. I do not think that
Brutal.
Ripple pointed to a single relevant case to defend themselves. They say that XRP is totally different and unique, and they're asking the SEC for documents in regards to other crypto cases. How does that make sense? Well, Jeff, how
That Chip, that on its own, just it shows that these attorneys haven't done their research. They haven't done their homework. They do not understand the crypto space. And they might be very specific to SEC law, maybe.
Right.
But they don't understand the crypto space. I learned a new word today. It's this week, unlettered. If you ever heard anyone use the term unlettered, it was great. Someone sent it in an email and said we're just dealing with a bunch of people that are unlettered.
What is that?
And just basically they have a lack of education, or
Okay,
they
all right.
act like almost illiterate, but illiterate means you can't read or write. Unlettered just means lacking of education and
like that.
knowledge of anything. And I never really heard that word used before, but the SEC, if you ever want to use it, the SEC are acting as though they are unlettered, as well as their attorneys, because they're leaving out. I mean, if you're going to come to the table to argue, at least, educate yourself on the topic. But this statement right here, it's like, why do they keep talking about other crypto assets? How does it make sense? Come on.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because it establishes, since there's no case law to draw upon here, it establishes some sort of a baseline, right? You have to have some kind of a baseline. And the baseline is the SEC had all these conversations. They had deliberations behind the scenes. This is another thing talked about today. They deliberated, and Tenero was basically saying, well, there's no cause how we deliberate behind the scenes. Well, there is, because how did you arrive at that? And how do you let someone like Bill Hinman go out there in 2018 to a Yahoo conference and then say something that everybody took as not personal opinion, but because you remember there was a giant rally too. I mean, I think at that time back in 2018, Ether hit like all-time highs. So Ethereum went through the roof. So he says they're asking for documents protected by DPP, but do they really have references to XRP? Ripple says that XRP is unique, and since we're sued, this opens the door to get all the DPP documents. I don't think it's any basis for this request. It would be significantly damaging for the government if they had those documents. The judge said, well, so you're saying that all DPP protection you are seeking also applies to more in different cases. And then I like how he puts confused how to respond. Answer that. All DPP documents have end dates on different subjects. Judge, well, how am I supposed to know this? What are you saying? And how are deliberate? And that was another great point when she said that. She goes, well, how am I supposed to know that from looking at this, from what you're saying? Especially how deliberations end. So I felt like that she was really starting to needle that. And again, she's not putting up with anything. This is a bright, brilliant judge who does have an understanding of the space, who has researched, who has done her homework. The SEC says, yeah, I understand, but Ripple says XRP is unique. Now, Jeff, this is a horrible argument. XRP is unique. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to differentiate because it's unique. It's so different from any other crypto asset. And this is what he's hanging his argument hat on. He's like, yep, that's going to be it. And it's a foolish argument because it's a digital asset class and because it's decentralized. And it is just like everything else, even though it has use cases that are unlike that. What are your thoughts on basically on that?
Well, Papa Huddle is saying it's all about controlling our money.
Of course.
So,
you know what they say, Jeff? The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. That's what they say, Jeff.
Right. So let's say, the SEC does have an ulterior, motive with this whole thing. Let's say it does go back to control. Let's say it does have something to do with, answering to, bigger lobbyists or bigger entities, bigger FIs out in the space, bigger, centralized, controlled banking structure. Maybe that's their, what they're answering to. Will the attorney then fight the fight, or will they just kind of buy their time with kind of a frivolous case with a little bit of drivel and just hope that they can drag this out as long as possible through this phase of discovery? and until they get, it's just like crazy. I mean, at some point, we're going to see through it, because how do they ask these kind of questions? How do they make these types of statements? When we get to the case, right? And they really start, digging in a little bit further. I honestly don't, again, this goes back to the beginning. I don't see a settlement.
No,
I don't
why
see
would they
the
settle?
SEC saying, hey, we give up. We want to settle. I see it. The judge is looking at it and say, you guys aren't even arguing a case. What are you doing? You're just mincing words, and you're just confusing. And these guys, and to this point, the judge will throw this stupid case out. Does it get to a point the judge is finally like, hey, you know what? This is
That's possible.
absurd. Let's find, here's what's going to come out of it.
I find that to be more a possible outcome, even though I think that's a long shot, but I would see that first, Bo, and to your point. Then the judge said, well, the request that Ripple's made is for me to make an in-camera review, something that's very common. And this is where they go into private chambers. They look at the documents, whether redacted or not. This is not a public thing for public consumption, but they have all parties there. I'm guessing they're probably going to do it over like a Zoom call or something like that, since they're not doing chambers. But this is where they review the documents and she makes a ruling. So she said the SEC says that the in-camera review is not necessary. Well, of course they're going to say that, Jeff, but they don't present a valid argument. And my inclination is to conduct an in-camera review as Ripple has requested on the documents they've selected. So I feel like the judge is spot on here. And again, Tenero made very weak arguments that, if you're going to say XRP is unique and that's your takeaway, and that's how you're going to argue in front of a very capable judge, you're sadly mistaken. She said, my inclination is to have the in-camera review. We're going to go look at the documents. Then she said, is there a reason the SEC thinks that I shouldn't be doing an in-camera review? SEC, well, you can do it if you want to, of course, but there are previous court cases that show the in-camera review of this type of situation should not be done. We think they're getting special treatment. The judge, I am not suggesting the defendants review these documents, but that I get to review them. The defendants have brought up valid arguments showing that the DPP privilege was not properly applied in this case. The defendants are not getting special treatment. So you see that the judge is really taking this on and taking control of what's going on in this hearing. Then the SEC, well, of course, we'll follow the will of the court, cites previous court cases, blah, blah, blah. He ripped off a couple. Well, he did do his homework there because he did have a couple court cases, case law already. It says in-camera review is usually reserved for when problems in a process has been identified. The judge says, I do want an in-camera process applied. So you see, Jeff, there's a little back and forth about this in-camera review, and the judge simply is saying at this point, I want to review the documents so I can make a ruling. And Tenero's arguing against that. How do you think this is? What kind of goodwill do you think Tenero's getting with this judge?
Not much, but it's funny. I posted the what in-camera review means. And so it says in U.S. courts, in-camera review describes a process or procedure where a judge privately looks at confidential, sensitive, or private information to determine what, if any, information may be used by a party or made public. And then XRP Speedboat said, yeah, private room with the Tina Turner song, Private Dancer playing in the background.
I'm a private dancer, dancing for money, dancing for XRP. Yeah, something like that, Jeff. So yeah, that's
oh my God. So the judges like to see porn in the SEC.
Well, there was that whole that did happen at the SEC. Remember that?
It did, exactly. Yeah.
They were like, they found that it was like running rampant. So that's a valid statement. Judge is like, I want the in-camera process applied. The SEC will send me the documents from Appendix A. The SEC can file certain portions of that letter as redacted, but should redact as less as possible. And I'm kind of doing it in her like tone, because she was like, this wasn't like, I do want to know. She was opening it up a little bit. Judge says, if I conclude that these documents should be produced, they will be. If I determine the DPP process was not applied correctly, then more documents will need to be given as well. Setting up schedule for documents to be produced and replies as well. Redacted and unredacted documents are now requested from the SEC. She's going to review, get back with a response as quick as possible. Then Ripple. So I mean, you could see that she was having none of it, Jeff. That none of his arguments were landing. He couldn't even make a clear argument as to why these documents didn't have to be produced. And not only that, but Jeff, the judge has already instructed the SEC 3 times to turn over other documents as far as conversations that basically had to do with either Ethereum or Bitcoin or those conversations, and they've ignored it. So I don't think they're.
How
I think
nice is
because
that? How do you ignore a judge? So the judge says,
well, you're the
you
SEC,
need to
Jeff. You think
produce
you're bigger
X,
than that.
and you say, no, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to do it. And we're going to show up to court the next time, and we're still not going to produce it. And then you ask again, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, come on, the judge, you have to at least, the judge has some authority here. I
This
don't
is
get
how
it.
you, Jeff. This is how you win goodwill. This is Ripple's attorney. The way the court is approaching this is completely sensible. Yeah, right. Repeating their position as unobjective versus subjective, and recklessness is objective. Because remember, when we broke down the initial filing, they said Garlinghouse was reckless. Well, what does that mean? You could say he doesn't eat his vegetables. So what? It's like, what is that? What kind of bearing? They didn't prove reckless, and they didn't allege fraud. So it says that important notes from the SEC also need to be turned over, as they're critical for the fair defense. And Jeff,
That's
here
right.
is why we believe that Ripple will be victorious. Now, could they get off paying a fine because maybe they say, okay, yeah, we'll give you that. Maybe at the time it wasn't 100% decentralized, but I'm telling you what, this fair defense is alive and well, and the firepower the Ripple attorneys have is incredible. They can't wait to get in that courtroom to a trial and they're just, notice people would say, like, why wouldn't they brought this point up, or why wouldn't they have said? Because this is not the place to bring it up. This is the hearing to discuss these simple points, that point only. You don't need to make any, you're not trying to make any, you don't want to go against the grain. You want to keep everything on topic. But that Ripple's fair defense is they're not going to be able to outdo that. Ripple said attorneys said we believe that the SEC's fallen flat under DPP process request. We suspect that more documents will be wanted by the judge after Appendix A. We think Your Honor can pass judgment now, if wanted. Boom, judgment. The SEC to produce Appendix A documents for an in-camera review. That was it.
End of call. That's like a mic drop right there, right? It's just like end of call. I like how Rob puts it. Boom, click. He's got this. You're on this thing, right? You got the phone, and you just you don't just end it. It's one of these where you got the whole phone, right? You got this thing, and you end the call, and you just smash that phone down. It's not like, you hang up politely. Just smash it down. You throw it down on the thing, and you're done.
That's the thing you can't do. You click that button, you don't get as much satisfaction out of it. But I want you guys to, want you to check out Rob XRP. He's a valuable member of the community. A big shout out to him, because I've seen a bunch of people do that. I've seen him live tweet other things, and I got to tell you, he's one of the best when it comes to this. I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to his tweet here. I'm going to throw him in there, guys. Go follow Rob XRP if you're not following him on Twitter. I'll drop that in there. Also, to the very top, he's got a Patreon. Go support him if that you like what he's producing there.
Yeah, so I think, Chip, by the time this gets to the end, we're gonna have an outcome. There's going to be an outcome. There's going to be a ruling. That's why I don't believe there's going to be a settlement. I think we have to go through the case. There has to be a clear-cut outcome, and part of that outcome, like you said, is there could be a payment of a fine. They might go back and say, hey, by the way, back in 2013, we found that there was some impropriety in terms of, there's a possibility it was, that there was that XRP was being sold, and that sale was a security. You were using it as a security. Maybe they could have some statements, maybe not, but that could be a final outcome. Pay this fine. Then there's clarity. Here's the outcome. XRP is not a security any longer. It could be interesting to see what kind of settlement there is. I was holding a comment here, and someone was saying the reason why where is it? No, it's gone. But someone had made this statement, and now I can't find it again. I kind of scrolled all the way up, but his basic statement was that they can't have a positive settlement. The SEC can't lose, because then they won't be able to regulate other crypto assets. But I believe that right now they also can't really regulate crypto assets. And then from this outcome, from whatever this case outcome is, then there's also going to be a determination as to what a security is as far as a digital asset, what qualifies, what doesn't, based on this new Ripple test. I do believe there has to be a Ripple test that comes out of this. And that's how the SEC in the future will have to regulate future cryptocurrency or all cryptocurrency. Oh, it's Brendan that said that. Congress has to regulate crypto, not this case. Congress has to write the legislation in order to regulate crypto. I agree with you 100%. However, just like in the Howey test, there had to be a fine, very clear cut, how to define a security. So the outcome of the Ripple test will also then establish how do you define identifying a digital asset that could potentially be a security. However, the regulation and the true clarity, like Brendan is saying, has to come out of Congress. I agree with that.
So Trapline says, what was that black thing Jeff was holding in his hand? A landline? Wow. Jeff, pull that up for everybody can see that. Now let's give a little history behind this puppy.
Let's make a phone call, shall we? When we call the SEC, we have to use one of these. So you can't reach the SEC when you're using your mobile phone.
Because it's 1947, Jeff, and that's circa
19. This is circa 1947. No, yeah, circa 1950s. This is probably a 1950s, maybe 1955 phone. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, there you go. And it probably
for those that didn't know how to use it, used to dial.
Heavy, right?
What's that?
Probably
it's really heavy. Oh, it's a great thing too, because from a self-defense, you put it near your bedside. So if anybody ever comes in the house, you always have a couple of these around, because one, you can whack someone over the head with this, and two, you can throw it at somebody, and it's really heavy.
Damn, Jeff. You don't want to ruin that.
And then if you throw it, then you can throw the handset first, and it comes back like a boomerang because it's got this thing in.
Holy cow. So Jeff, remember how we were singing the praises of El Salvador and how they were going all Bitcoin and stuff? Well, apparently that's not going well, because anti-Bitcoin protests are ongoing in El Salvador ahead of the legalization. And there was this tweet right here, which I pulled up and translated here. People demonstrating against Bitcoin. He says the opposition's one that criticizes him. This is the I don't know. No, my dear, the agricultural sector and formal vendors, they also reject it. So they're not down on the whole Bitcoin thing. They're against it. But again, I think part of that has to do with, when something's mandated versus like a free choice. I think sometimes that might have something to do with it too. Plus, this is a very fiat-driven society. Probably more so than anywhere else, is you're carrying actual money in your pocket, fiat, and you're. It's not as though, and I think that's another potential issue too, where when's the last time, how often do you ever have like a banknote in your wallet, Jeff? I mean, and if you have my daughter, it's like it's in there for a very short period of time before it leaves it. But most of the time,
I'll tell you what, I've been carrying cash. I don't have any right now. My wallet's empty of cash, devoid of cash. But normally I do have a lot of cash in my wallet, because for some reason the world has become a cash place. I don't know why.
What? Which world do you live in?
When I bring my son to tennis, we have to pay in cash.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, there's certain things that still, I mean, vendors and stuff like that.
But I get it. From El Salvador, the people on the ground, they probably don't understand it 100%. I think they're a little nervous. They see it, it's digital. I mean, think about, look at the people in that picture. If you go back, they're like you said, they're normally dealing in paper money. Their whole society exists in that paper environment. And this is how a lot of these countries operate. So it doesn't matter where you go, but they're looking at Bitcoin. They don't understand it. That is for sure. The other question is, who's riling them up? Because right now you have the leader of El Salvador super fired up about Bitcoin, but they're looking at it and they're like, this is digital money. The government is going to be able to control us and monitor us and regulate everything we do with the Bitcoin. And I think that they're kind of missing, a part of that statement a little bit. And, so it's interesting. It's a really interesting dynamic.
Well, I mean, You're right, but I make it that might just been one demonstration in one area where they blow it up, and you're right. Who's
And that's
behind
true.
it? The big banks. They don't want it. They're probably like, hey, go here. Here's here's $50. Go out and demonstrate. Carry these signs. Who knows? I mean,
Look at
there
that.
you go.
Jim Pearson, Western Electric Model 500. Look at that. There's a 500 on the bottom of that thing. He
Look
knows
at
his
that.
phones.
Geez,
Look at
Pearson is
that.
like on top of that, man.
1950 to 1984. Did they
Holy
still make
cow.
rotary in the 80s? Oh, yeah, I guess they did have rotary. But this is,
Yeah.
so this is like 1950-ish, and it's heavy. I think they lightened them up a little bit.
Holy cow, Jeff. That's like,
Man,
what else can Pearson share with us? He seems like he's right on top of that.
Oh,
He picked all that up.
it's the
Is the
SEC from El Salvador. I think most of the members of Congress are.
That's potentially true. I mean, without a doubt.
But you know what? You know what's amazing though? Once the people in El Salvador get educated a little bit on the benefit of digital asset, and they look at their own internal currency, they see the inflation, they see the fact that it's very difficult for them to function and operate
Of course.
outside of their country. They see how expensive it is to send and receive money from other countries. They see how it's almost impossible for them to buy outside of their country. Bitcoin is like, the door is opening for them and they don't realize it. And we know Bitcoin isn't the best solution especially for making purchases. We know it's slow.
Right.
We know it's expensive. Good store of value. It's going up in value. Their currency is inflationary. It's going down in value. You can buy less Bitcoin with their currency now than you could, a year ago. Same thing with the US dollar. But all these countries like El Salvador are identifying and realizing they have to separate themselves away from these significant inflationary environments and find something. So I think it's a matter of education, and it's a fear factor. They're terrified of moving
That
from
was a great
paper
show, Jeff.
to digital, right?
Joe Rogan. I still think Joe Rogan's best performance ever was when he was the host of Fear Factor. That was a great show back in the early 2000s. But I want to throw this up here. You put this in here, Jeff. And Robinhood tanks after the SEC chair tells barons that banning payment for order flow is a possibility. So what's this all about, Jeff? And why are they, again, not standing up for the investors?
Well, there's a little more to it. So, so the one, you look at that, Robinhood's going down. But right before that, you saw that the SEC chair says they want to ban, here, let me pull this one up too. Because if you look at them together, then you start seeing that there's some interesting significance as to what they're getting ready to do with Robinhood. Here, let me just throw this up here, and then we'll put yours back up. But the SEC chairman says ban a payment for order flow on the table. Now, here you have the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, said a full ban of the controversial payment for order flow practice is on the table. Now, this is important because they're getting some compensation in the order books for the, I think it's the, let me see. Let's see. Gensler has in the past been critical of PFOF practice, whereby wholesale market makers pay broker dealers to send them client orders, which they execute on their own trading platform or a third-party platform. He has said the practice raises several conflict of interest questions, and then they directly single out Robinhood.
So what it really does, it crushes innovation. So here you got payment for order flow, one of Robinhood's largest revenue sources, and the way millennial favored stock trading app is to provide zero commission trading. This is how they're able to do it. So you crush the innovation. Now you have to go back to charging for trades, and then you pretty much are going to tank your entire audience there. So payment for order flow is controversial practice that's garnered attention from the financial industry regulatory authority and Main Street. Asked for clarification, the SEC spokesperson declined to comment because it was only personal comment anyway. Gensler said for months it's an outright ban of payment for order flow is among several options. Look, Gensler is a cop. Gensler is power tripping cop who just can't wait to smash heads. And you ought to go back and read the mission statement, which is to protect investors. That's not enforcement and regulation via enforcement via regulation. Where Brad Garlinghouse's tweet was so appropriate. He didn't say a lot. There was only 2 tweets. There weren't a lot of words there, but what he said was pretty big. And I just think that they've got to come together. I mean, this whole thing with the SEC, they're going to have to do some reputational repair. I don't even know if it's possible, because I think they've overstepped so many times that I don't think there's a path back for them, Jeff. Just my 2 cents.
I agree. And that's what Brendan is saying here. SEC will ban Robinhood to protect investors. So here they go again. Let's attack Ripple to protect investors. XRP is a security. We're going to rule on that to protect investors. We're going to crush Robinhood, to protect investors. So BS, you remember that game Bullshit? It was a card game. I forget how to play, and you would have to call bullshit.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So I call bullshit. It's just like at some point we have to look and say, no, they're definitely not. This is just absurd at this point.
Yeah, it is. And, the whole thing, look, I think in a way it's kind of exciting to watch this unfold, because if we look back 7 months ago, 8 months, really, what was December? So technically it's 9 months ago. But if you look back, I don't think anybody could forecast the way this would sort of work out. But one thing that Brad Garlinghouse said that I think is really clever is he talked about, big shout out to the community, we never counted on internet sleuths. Well, also, too, they didn't know John Deaton was going to get involved, and on his holiday break, he was going to sit there and file some paperwork. We didn't know that 19,000 people would join. We didn't know that opening 4,000 phone lines would get crushed. First time they were so overloaded. And then the judge had said in another one saying, this case has got so much attention on it. And it does. And I think the judge also understands the magnitude of this case. She understands what this case is about. She understands the ramifications. That's why I think she's being very cautious, especially the questioning. But to see her kind of lose it a couple of times, that was something. To see her really, no, wait a minute. When she was, she was starting to, she was getting a little upset, and Tanura was digging it. The first rule of holes, Jeff.
First time. It's not the
Jeff,
first time.
Do you know the first rule of holes?
What is it?
When you're in one, stop digging. And they were digging a deep hole there. They were digging a deep hole. They were in a ditch. They were like, it was up over his head. And he's like, oh, let me try to fix this. And he keeps talking, and more dirt and everything else. So.
And when your enemy is digging their hole, you keep letting them dig.
Yeah, the first rule of holes, man. If you're in one, stop digging.
I like this. Aaron is saying protect is open to interpretation.
Is it?
Fred
it
is
sounds like
saying
enforcement.
Right. Fred is saying the SEC needs an SEC for oversight. I love this. And that Sophie is saying, I've had a hard enough time with XRP, downloaded Robinhood, but not brave enough to use it. Robinhood was by far the easiest stock buying app I've ever used, ever. And it's just like no frills, super easy to use. And it was amazing too, because you could get instant transfers, instant money access if you pay their monthly fee. So for a while I was using Robinhood, because as you're running around and you're monitoring stuff, and most of my stocks when I was trading, I would put, trailing stops and everything on it, then I already knew my outs. But in this case, it was fun to play with. It's a great app, and, obviously people are using it. But now it looks like it's going to get crushed, potentially. Crushed.
BZ Comedy says, community fist bump. I'll give you one of those. Boom. I'll give you a bump. Let's do it. Jeff.
I like this one. Jesse, SEC seeking everyone's crypto.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that, right, Jesse? It's kind of starting to smell like that. Let me see. Protect the investor, crush Ripple. But I don't care. I like Ripple's odds. I've said this you can go back to our videos from December. Jeff and I said it was a very weak case. People disagreed. People said, oh no, the sky's falling. Sell your XRP. People delisted it. And I'm like, look, read through it. We studied it. We broke it down into multiple videos. We went through it. Now, we're not attorneys. We're just guys. We're just business guys that I know a lot more about contract as they apply to business stuff, because I've written enough of them and gone between enough of them. And I also happen to work in a sector where I see a lot of pleadings, and I'm not an attorney, but I kind of know how to read through the riffraff. So I thought they were thin
And there's a
on
lot
that
of
to
riffraff.
begin with. There's a lot of riffraff. But Jeff, how often do we broadcast?
Sometimes 6 days a week. Other times 6 days a week.
And so it's basically 6 days a week is what you're telling me. Are you saying there's a 6
telling
days
you,
a week
it's
scenario?
basically 6 days a week. Yeah. If you want to read in between the lines with that statement, then I would say yes. 6 days a week, Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you know what, Chip? You know what? The one thing everybody out there who's watching, the one thing that they can do, and if they are brand new to the channel, they can hit the subscribe button. If they're not brand new to the channel and they're subscribed and they haven't done it yet, they can hit the bell notifier. And everybody here can hit the thumbs up. Why? Because that's the cool thing to do. You're not cool if you don't hit the thumbs up. That's what they say. Actually, those three things, you find it hard to believe, but those three little things boost up the Google algorithm. And you say, hey, how can I help on the chain? Get in front of more people, build up the audience. Those three things, that's what Google likes. That's what Google gets.
That's right.
What do you think
Well
of that?
said, Jeff. Guys, we'll be back with another banging show tomorrow night. We'll be back here. We'll be analyzing. We'll be talking projects. Probably a little bit XRP thrown in there. But we'll get through it together. We'll workshop it together. That's all I have, Jeff. We'll see you
On
guys.
the way out of here, I got to read this comment because it's hilarious. 6 days a week. Wow. Are you going to talk about the SEC guy who taught at MIT, Gary something?
No, never
Not
heard
going
of
to
him.
happen.
No way, Oscar. Not going to happen.
And on that, Chip.
And that we are out of here. We'll see you on the next one. Chip and Jeff out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.